Okay, this is kind of in order, but top 5 ways to fix the college football calendar. So it's not like the best way. It's like all 5 ways that I would fix it, even knowing that there's still probably some landmines to try to diffuse. But it's been the talk this week. Number 5, move the season up a week. And this goes in with number 4, but move the season up a week starting in late August every year. That way you can get games in before you get into the playoff, which feeds into, Jack, let's just go ahead and go on to number 4, which would be making sure you end the season in the first week in January.
That is almost going to be impossible. I know that's what you're saying, suggestions.
Yeah. I'm just trying to do it like this is the most practical road to it, is if you focus on ending the season in the first week in January instead, in sometimes the 3rd, it can be all the way to January 16th or 17th when this happens. If you focus on ending the season then some of your recruiting woes or like calendar issues can be assuaged a little bit.
So you're talking about ending the regular season?
The entire season. Like the bowls, season. Like everything, the season over first week in January.
You would have to start, in like July?
No, you'd have to start, like you moved it up a week, given the calendar that they have right now. It would also mean not giving as many buys for the playoff before it starts, which I think is kind of silly. I think you should kind of roll out from the conference title games and get right to
4 buys, right?
Yeah.
4 buys. So there's 1 round from 8 to 4 plus 4, 2 rounds to get from 8 to 4. So that's going to be 4 games, right? You have to win 4 games.
Yeah, but and part of the thing right now is we've got, like, even in the schedule you've seen for 2024 and 2025, the gap between the conference title games when they start to play these playoff games is still pretty large. So you'd have to make sure by ending the season the first week of January, that also means you got to move the playoff calendar up so where it is the way I see it ending is it's conference title games, week off for Army, Navy, and the Heisman Trophy and all that, and then you hit the playoff like right then, maybe even on do them on Thursday and Friday to avoid the NFL a little bit and create a little bit more bug. So Thursday is not a...
You're trying to make sense, Paul.
I'm trying to make sense, but that's what you'd have to do. You can't just give this huge gap between the end of the conference title games and the playoff. You got to make it happen pretty fast.
Well, you're not going to be able to do that anyways because you have more playoff games. So you can't, in theory, wait a month to play them because you've got to play. Like, even if you did it now, you'd have to, as soon as the conference championships, like maybe a couple of weeks, and then you play the
that's what they're doing
round.
next year. Yeah. That's how the schedule is.
And so I don't know how else you do that because there's going to have to be some breathing room in there for these teams. When you're all of a sudden tacking on multiple extra games for a handful of them, that's not affecting everybody, obviously, but... Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a grunt. I mean, next year, doesn't it start a little bit earlier? Isn't that why there's the double bye weeks?
Yeah,
that everybody's getting. So yeah, that'll be interesting. But yeah, they could at least move up a week or 2. You would think in theory, and that would help at least open up some more room to play around with.
This also has them, we have Tim Brando has said all the time, it maybe helps them own December a little bit better.
Right, yeah. Because the NFL's starting Saturday games this weekend, right?
Yeah.
They start Saturday games tomorrow, and that's because college football, even though bowl games will be going on, they're like, oh, right, y'all are out of the way. We're going to go ahead and start staking our claim again and take over December, like you said.
Exactly. All right, number 3, open the portal games after the bowl games are played, and this only works if you do it the way that I'm telling you to do it. If you don't do it the way I'm telling you to do it, then it doesn't, right? Because that way you can, you don't have that kind of sticky wicket with a calendar that's coming in right now because, you've got like the Malik Murphy situation, he has to get to his new campus before they would be, because he could theoretically play in one game and then not the other one if he had to be on campus. And that's why they've got this problem right here.
And if you're Texas and if you knew that he could play in the first game but would not be there for the championship game, would you not want to play Arch Manning to give him more snaps?
Well, if that's what happened, like you're in a situation where now, like you can't. So Malik Murphy is maybe the highlight or the flashpoint of this issue of like, all right, you've got a guy who doesn't want, like, he's going to leave, but he'd like to play the last 2 games of the team he was there, or at least the last one, because he's part of it. Yeah,
it sucks, but for a couple things here is one, school's still school.
Yeah.
And so you can't expect universities are going to change their entire schedules to accommodate the football teams.
No.
Right? And so that's the part that is like when you start bringing that up is people have to remind others of like it is still school, and so that's the part where I don't know how you get around that part of it.
That's why I said you can only do this if you move the entire calendar. So if you're done the first week in January and the season's over and you open the portal, then you have a reasonable amount of time, which also will go into number 2, which would be a flexible academic calendar for guys in the portal. Like you maybe need to give them a week grace period to get to the new spot, something like that.
I want to say back to the other one though, like, and maybe I don't know. I was pretty sympathetic to Caden Green earlier today, so I feel like I'm pretty player friendly here. But like, maybe they just don't get every single thing that they want. Like maybe one of the things that you don't get is like you don't get to be in the portal and then also get to play in the. You know what I'm saying? Like
you're so unfair to them.
I mean,
I'm kidding.
I want Malik Murphy to be able to play for Texas because I think he's earned that right to play for Texas and shouldn't have to miss out on a possible national championship run because he's got to go get enrolled. But I mean, the way that it's set up, like maybe you just can't give the players every single thing that they want. And,
but once you get it, why would you give it up?
No, I know. But I mean, now you're asking to bend semesters for Malik Murphy so that he can go play playoff games and then go to the school that he wants and go make, you know what I'm saying? So it's like at some point you just can't do everything for everybody and make it comfortable in every single scenario.
I agree with you, but I think it's too late.
Yeah.
But like I said, when I say flexible academic calendar, I'm not saying like change the whole thing for every student.
Right.
Just if you put your name in the transfer portal after your bowl game, then you have like a week waiver to decide where you're going to be. Yeah. Also change, like you're going to have to change dead periods and all that. You're going to have to pretty much open it straight up because based on this other one, they'll also be doing other recruiting so they can work it all in there. Number 1. Move the early signing day to July. Like this one is going to be tough, but I do think that like it would solve a ton of issues. Like, and then you're also going to have to deal with the fact of like coaching changes and things like that. But if you're signing with a school that, you know, there's ways around this, but that's the only way is to get the early signing day out of December. They have to get it out of December. Otherwise,
so we fought all this time for them to be an early signing day. And now we're going to get rid of the early signing day?
No, I'm moving. I'm not getting rid of it. I'm moving it
back.
back.
Still one in February?
Yeah. So, like, you know, February's the regular signing day, but, like, the early signing day is now in July, at the end of July, so kids who are going to, you know, who are not going to change their mind can sign. And then the regular signing day probably gets bigger because there'll be some kids who are like, well, I can't decide right now. But you do have that early signing period in July and you take it out of December, which makes it more reasonable for the coaching schedule.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice idea. They need to do something, you would think, with just the coaching carousel and the bowl games and the transfer portal and then signing day. It seems like a lot. It seems like a lot all at once to try to have to maneuver through. Even for those that get paid the big bucks, it's like, is there not a better way to do this? I mean, it's one thing, is there just simply not a better way to do it? Here's the problem I see with this, though, Paul, that I can already see coming down the pipeline. Kid signs with Florida in July signing day, and then or signs with School A, and then he starts to have a pretty good senior year, and all of a sudden a bunch of new schools start to get really interested, and all of a sudden he's interested, and he doesn't really want to be signed to the school that he just signed to because now he's got these new offers he didn't think he was going to have, and now the rules are against him, and now he's going to go to the courts, and I should be allowed to get out of it, and then that turns into that standard scenario where now there's a new thing to have to battle in the courts. So that would be my main concern with that. But you don't do something just because of what might happen necessarily. But that's what I could see would be the first issue that would arise would be like, well, he's just 17. He didn't know that in July that Florida was going to offer him in August. And
then what happens when the mental health thing comes in?
Well, they've already lost on all that. But
that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, like, you ever seen a boat that has a hole in it? You fill that hole, and another one pops up.
I don't know how that applies here necessarily, other than like you would, because you've committed. But yeah, Craig's point is good, and then and again they can't. The way that the football season is that. I don't know, but they've got to somehow make it flow.
Kids
better.
that want to sign there, that's great, but I just know that's going to be an offspring of it. Is going to be inevitably somebody's not happy, or they got a new offer, or they've changed their mind. And then how does it happen with the coaching carousel?
Yeah.
So, like, if a guy, how does that affect if you sign in July? Well, that coach that you're signing to play for, some of those guys are not going to be there in December.
Well, you already have the rule that exists if you're coaching.
So that would open that up. You're right.
That already exists. So I think that's care. But like
that helps.
The one you said, like that is going to be, and maybe like part of this though. And Craig, to go back to your early point of maybe you don't get everything. I think a lot of kids have an unrealistic expectation of what recruiting is, and so. If you don't absolutely know where you're going to go in July and you're not going to change your mind, then leave it open. Like that's what you do. Like there used to be one signing day in February.
What in this, and they'll never. I know this is not going to happen, but if you commit, by God, you're going to go there. You can't decommit.
Yeah, no, but like
I know.
Yeah, but no, but look, here's the thing. There used to be just one signing day, right? And now there's two. So look, if you don't know, and like that's part of it. Like, hey, if you don't know, then don't sign. Just wait till February.
But then maybe you don't get all the attention.
Maybe you just eliminate the early signing day entirely.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be.
And then it's just in February. Yeah. And then aren't all problems solved?
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much. Aren't all the problems solved then? Because there's not the early sign. Like, just get rid of it. And
then coaching changes occur, and then whoever you sign with, now
by
you get
February,
the lead.
I mean, by February, the playoff is over. Everything's done with. There's no bowl games. There's no